Dining out. Americans do it a lot nowadays, and with more of us eating out than ever before, the food and service industry has boomed in profitability.
The very simplest way of putting it, you act really nice to people and they give you money. You make them want to give you money.
Josh Wharton, server and bartender at Fujiyama's Japanese steakhouse in Olympia, is no stranger to the industry.
At the last place I worked at, the last Japanese restaurant I worked at, near the end I was getting so frustrated with the place and felt so reliant on it that I was thinking about killing myself, much like many of the people there did, and essentially became horrible working alcoholics. Instead of, essentially to suppress the thoughts. We gather tips at the end of the evening. We get them throughout the whole day, but at the end of the night, we generally count them up. 10% of the amount of the ticket, that is automatically what comes out of what we've made in tips that day.
A common policy for restaurant owners is to guarantee a set tip percentage for back-of-house staff, or, as is in the case of Fujiyama, for the hibachi chefs themselves.
At Fujiyama's, 10% of all net sales, including the bar, anything sold here, goes to the chefs. And then whatever is tipped on top of that, so that's taken out of the tips, whatever's tipped on top of that is split between everyone else. Hello, my name is David Petty. I am a server at Fujiyama's Japanese steakhouse. But I've worked in the food industry for every job I've had since I was 20, I think, so it's 5 years. The fact that tips are taken out of your paycheck, which kind of defeats the purpose in my opinion. But
the tipping incentive seems to have an interesting effect on the psyche of the server. In a study done through Cornell University, quote, the variability in the tendency to base tips on service helps to explain why the service-tipping relationship is weaker than many expect, because the existence of people who do not tip dilutes the service-tipping relationship, while probably not encouraging a stronger relationship among those who do tip.
In some ways it makes me kind of take a lot of shit that I wouldn't normally, well, I don't know, I guess I take a lot of shit out of jobs, but just a certain type of people, I try a little bit harder to try and make them happy, even though they're, a lot of times not trying to be happy.
It's interesting to note how tipping can have an effect on the server's perceptions of the customer, often encouraging the development of prejudice.
I hate to say it, but definitely military people, they get the discount. They want every part of the discount.
Generally what you're looking at is people who haven't learned to tip. Essentially it's not in their culture, be it young people, oftentimes Middle Eastern people, oftentimes black people that are more or less disenfranchised, people that seem to be living off of their social security checks. It's terrible to stereotype lots of people like that. I mean, more or less, it's more people of those descriptions. Oftentimes you have many military people that do not tip. I don't know why.
I wouldn't mind that as much if that wasn't taking money out of my tips. Like, if it just kept the tips all the same, I wouldn't really bother. It wouldn't bother me one way or the other. It certainly is a little bit of a demotivator when you get a big fat zero on like $100 bill.
What many fail to realize is that often tipping below 10% means the server has to pay out of pocket to cover the tip already guaranteed to the back of house.
Somebody's giving me attitude at the beginning, I usually just assume they're not going to tip me. So, of course, yeah, there's no motivation there. You don't want to help them out extra for nothing. I see that in other servers that I work with also, where they're just like, oh, it's not going to happen, so they can fuck themselves, Hear that a lot in the back.
For now, the practice of tipping doesn't seem to be going anywhere anytime soon, and the servers are happy for the work in spite of certain setbacks.
Ultimately, it's very funny that there's more resentment here for the business profiteering off of the servers, it seems like, than otherwise. It's more or less just workers here and the restaurant itself butting heads.
My favorite part is probably how few hours I have to work to make a living. That, of course, varies, but That just frees me up for school. So it's a good job to have while you're at school because it doesn't conflict with any classes.